How well equipped are the Miami Dolphins to counter the things that each one of their divisional opponents project to be best at in 2024? We're exploring that here today on this episode of Locked On Dolphins.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Miami, welcome to another episode of Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day here on the Locked On Network. I'm your host, Kyle Krabs, a lifelong Miami Dolphins fan, host of Locked On Dolphins, co-host of Locked On NFL Scouting. You can find our shows on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Tip of the cap to our everydayers, because it is your team every day. We don't just say it, we live it here on the Locked On Network. Today's episode of Locked On Dolphins is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase on last-minute tickets with the lowest prices guaranteed. Today on the show, we are looking at the AFC East landscape and specifically looking at where each one of our divisional opponents are best, or projected to be best, or look to be the best on their rosters entering into this upcoming season. And we're going to lean a little bit on the project that I've done alongside Joe Marino over on Locked On NFL Scouting, which you should make your second listen of the day. We did a mailbag today. It was a lot of fun. But it's looking at the quality and caliber of each position on a 53 roster for each of the teams across the NFL and putting them into various buckets to quantify how good your roster is, right? And I can tell you the Dolphins are pretty well represented in this exercise. So are the Jets, so are the Bills. The Patriots have a lot of new, but there appear to be three very competitive teams, and then a team that's in a youth movement in the AFC East this upcoming season in 2024. So I thought now that we are effectively finished that project, we're finished all of the teams, we're finished assessing the coaching staffs for all the teams. So now we have like our full 32-team power rankings for the NFL season. Now's a great time for me to borrow some of that legwork and foundation to bring here onto today's show. So we're going to dive in, starting with the New England Patriots, because they are the team that is facing all of the new. They have new at quarterback. They have a new head coach. They have a new offensive scheme with Alex Van Pelt coming over from Cleveland to run a Shanahan-esque West Coast-ish type of system. They have either Drake May or Jacoby Brissett. They've got brand new perimeter wide receivers with a bunch of young guys. The only thing they kind of kept the same was the nucleus of the defense. And when I think about the Patriots, we'll look at them on both sides of the ball. Their strength is really going to be the spine of the offense. Their offensive line, they do have a question at left tackle, whether that's Chukwuma Okorafor, who they brought in from Pittsburgh in free agency after he got cut after being a fringe starter. He started a lot of games, but the caliber of starting play wasn't necessarily consistent there. Or Caden Wallace, who is a day 2 draft pick for them to play left tackle. But the interior group for them, they're dealing with an injury to Cole Strange from the end of last season that has his availability for the start of the season in jeopardy. So the left side of their offensive line kind of has some questions, but then David Andrews over on the right side of the offensive line, they bring back Michael Onwenu. They can run the ball downhill. That Cleveland scheme, of course, with Nick Chubb is very predicated around running the football. And then they like to have versatility at tight end. They have Hunter Henry, who they brought back. And that's the strength of where the Patriots are going to play. And I think when you consider the Dolphins and what their defensive personnel looks like, I think this multiple front defense that we're expecting Anthony Weaver to bring into the mix, plus some of the changes between swapping out Brandon Jones and Deshaun Elliott for Jordan Poyer and Marcus May. I think moving Jalen Ramsey to be more of an impactful player, to live in the middle of an offense or the middle of a defense and put him closer to the football, and getting bigger at linebacker with Walker and Jordan Brooks being brought into the fray. It puts you in a position where you should think theoretically against the Patriots offense, you do match pretty well against what they do. And you've had success. The teams that I think are really going to stress Miami offensively are the teams that can win their isolated matchups in space. I don't think, just because I do think structurally they can change their fronts to kind of occupy enough gaps to cover for if you perceive that this massive drop off, and I think there is a drop off, but not a massive drop off from Christian Wilkins to Calais Campbell is kind of your other guy inside. So you can structurally change your front and then change what it looks like on the back end. But for teams that can do both, that can run the ball and win their matchups on the perimeter, those are the teams, of course, that are going to put the most stress on you. I don't see the Patriots with so many young guys in the wide receiver room as being a team that's particularly likely, especially in the first game when Miami catches them in week 5 before their early season bye. That's just a lot of new and inexperience for a team like Miami who has veteran corners and Kendall Fuller and Jalen Ramsey. We'll see who the third corner ends up being, but the wide receivers are second-year, 6th-round pick into Mario Douglas. Javon Baker and Jalen Polk are rookies. Kendrick Bourne, KJ Osborne, they signed in free agency. That was kind of their big free agent signing. Keyshawn Boutte is another 6th-round pick from 2023. Like, especially the first matchup, whether Drake May is playing or Jacoby Brissett's playing, I think Miami's very well equipped to match what the Patriots are expected to be best at offensively in 2024. Now, defensively, Miami has had success moving the ball. It's a little bit of an unknown of Gerard Mayo and him applying the Belichick principles. And I believe what the defensive coordinator now is DeMarcus Covington. And his impact is a little bit of an unknown, and Gerard Mayo and what are they going to look like defensively? It is a little bit more of a mystery, but they made the point to extend Christian Barmore. They made the point to extend their linebackers. They made the point to get a new deal done with Kyle Duggar. There's not a lot of new on the defensive side of the ball when you consider, all the draft picks, wide receiver, offensive tackle, interior offensive lineman with Layden Robinson, Drake May at quarterback, Jaheim Bell at tight end. Like, they invested a lot on the offensive side of the ball. So it stands within reason to think that the Patriots are probably going to run a lot of what they did last year with simulated pressures, and they're going to try to take away your primary thing. And I think that's where the depth of Miami's skill group helps them, right? Because you're a deeper unit in your skill groups this year than what you were last year. That, in theory, gives you more that you have to take away. And Miami can be content to say, okay, if you want to play zone, we'll cut you up in zone and we'll ear hole around you. If you want to bring pressure and you want to bracket our best players, we have more players that can make plays with the balls in their hands. So I think the Patriots are a team that's going to be really fascinating to see how they grow and mature through their overhaul as a franchise. There's a lot of new in a lot of places, a lot of key places. Football operations all the way down. I don't think that bodes particularly well for them, especially early in year one. Can I see them being a team that kind of puts it together and gets hot late in the year? Yeah, because they have a high enough floor with Jacoby Brissett. We'll see if Drake May is able to take that job from him. The defense has statistically been very productive, and they brought that entire nucleus back. So New England is a team who's going to be fascinating to watch. Miami will be done with them early. I think that's of benefit to the Dolphins to get this team out of the way early this season. And I think they match up pretty well against the strengths of what the Patriots are supposed to do. Now we have the Jets next here on this episode of Locked On Dolphins. We'll finish with that team from Western New York. Make sure you stick with us. Passion, drive, and patience are not just the formula for winning championships. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guarantee Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home big dubs this season and all seasons across the calendar. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit available only to U.S. customers. The New York Jets, second place team in the AFC East this past season. They're bringing back Aaron Rodgers. They made a lot of investments in the offensive line with established NFL players and their top draft choice. I think when you look at this team offensively, they are well equipped to run the ball. When you consider Morgan Moses and John Simpson coming over from Baltimore, I think those guys are very good run blockers to go with Joe Tippmann. We'll see how healthy Elijah Vera Tucker can stay this season. You Dolphins fans have problems with Teron Armstead's ability to stay healthy. Vera Tucker is their version of that. And they also have another version of that with Tyron Smith, free agent coming over from Dallas. But then their swing tackle is Olu Fashanu. So this offensive line does have pretty consistent traits of power at the point of attack. They can run zone. They can climb and get at you. They can create some vertical displacement. I do think they're a little bit limited by the scheme where Nathaniel Hackett is the offensive play caller. He vibes with Aaron Rodgers because effectively he's going to let Aaron do whatever he wants at the line of scrimmage. So when you play Aaron, and the Dolphins got bit by this a few times when they played in 2022 against the Packers at home late in the season. If you give Aaron favorable looks to take shots down the sideline, he will signal them and he will take them. So I think that's where, with Garrett Wilson and Mike Williams as the top two receivers, you have to be persistent with your matchups against the wide receivers for the Jets, because Rodgers will get up to the line of scrimmage, identify a matchup that he likes with a safety look that he likes where he feels like he's going to have space to do it, and he's going to try to take shots. And he will do it at any point in time. And look, the Dolphins did this last year with great success. A lot of their big explosive touchdowns came on, we got up to the line of scrimmage, we saw the weak safety rotation, and the corner was pressed up on Tyreek, and they were going to ask the field safety to rotate and get in the middle of the field and be able to take that throw away. We signaled at the line of scrimmage, threw a touchdown off it. That's a very persistent hallmark of Aaron Rodgers and what helped him be so successful when they made their change to Matt LaFleur and he got the 2 back-to-back NFL MVPs. So matching up with Garrett Wilson and Mike Williams, and then off of that, being able to tackle the run if you have to take an extra safety to help whoever Jalen Ramsey's not on. Like, I would probably put Ramsey on Garrett Wilson. And if you feel good about that and you're worried that Mike Williams, if he's healthy, maybe has a size advantage over Kendall Fuller, you're worried about that physicality, you can bracket him as well. The other way that you could choose to do is put size on size and have Ramsey on Mike Williams, and then say we're going to de facto take the best receiver and give him the Bill Belichick treatment, which is we're not going to try to match him up one-on-one and match strength for strength. We're just going to cloud up and press him and play a safety over the top, and you're going to get 1.5 guys on you the entire game. Like, so you have a choice, and that's the allure of the flexibility of the Dolphins secondary with how they've gone after players, is they have a lot of flexibility in different ways that they can build game plans. But however you do that, just know if you give them a certain look, they're going to try to shake explosive shots down the field outside the numbers. So I think they have the versatility to match personnel as needed. The question will be, how well does their offensive line with 3 new starters gel? And then if Olu Fashanu has to play prominent snaps and a lot of snaps, how well does he take in his transition from college? I think fortunately for Miami, they don't catch the Jets until later in the season. They play both of their games late. And that gives you an opportunity to hopefully get both Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips back to some level of having their legs underneath of them and being closer to the versions of themselves when they're at their best. And if you have that, I think that really helps you because you have the versatility in the secondary. And can you win your matchups up front? This is a team offensively that can, in theory, if they're healthy, test you with both running the ball and winning individual matchups outside. I think they're probably, from an offensive personnel standpoint, the team that can do that best in the division as things currently stand outside of the Dolphins. Now, against the Jets defense, the Dolphins have had a pretty fair amount of success against the New York Jets defense in recent history. They've had a lot of head-to-head success against the Jets in recent history as well. Miami has won, 3 of the last 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm not a math guy. 5, 6, 7 of the last 9, and 8, 9, 10, 11 of the last 13. And 13 of the last 16 against the Jets, right? So a lot of head-to-head success. The Dolphins in these games scoring 30 points, 34 points, 11 points with Skylar Thompson, 17 points with Skylar Thompson, 31 points in 2021, 24 points in 2021, 20 points, 24 points. They lost by 1 point to the Jets in 2019. That was they should have won that game, right? Was that the Nick Needham? No, I think the Nick Needham penalty was the was that the Giants game that year? Whatever. It doesn't matter. I digress. Teams that can have success against the Jets, I think you do have to have a certain element of speed just because they can be very physical on the outside with receivers. You do have to have the speed to stack that and force them to play high hat and force them to play low box counts. And from that point, it's can you take advantage of the aggressiveness and speed of their linebackers? And the Dolphins have had some success doing that. It's a very methodical type of game to play against the Jets offensively. I think it's Miami has taken advantage of not having a lot of offensive stress from the Jets in some of these head-to-head matchups. So I think the dynamics of the game will be a little different. But having as much success of being methodical and trying to run clock and trying to possess the football to keep the clock running in some of these games certainly helps you. And then, of course, the quick passing game negates the Jets' other strength, which is their ability to create pressure and overwhelm you. Them adding Hassan Reddick is a potential problem. It's where you're glad you presume that you have a very deep offensive tackle room with your 1 through 4. You feel like those guys could all play and you'd be okay. So it gives you a little bit more insurance in that regard. But the big weakness for the Jets depth chart defensively right now is their safety room. I think they have is it Tony Adams and Chuck Clark coming off of an injury before the season even started last year. They're projected starting safeties. So if you want to get after the Jets, I think your middle of the field targeted passing, especially on your play action passing, where the linebackers have to respect that and flow up, is where you can really attack them as things currently stand. We'll see if they end up being players for somebody in free agency. There's a few safeties that are still left out there. Now we have the Bills next on this episode of Locked On Dolphins. Make sure you stick with us. So all of the recent success Miami has had against the Jets is the equivalent to the recent success the Bills have had against the Dolphins. So they say the fastest ticket to winning in the postseason is to have home playoff games by winning your division, and the fastest way to win your division is to win your divisional games, right? So I feel like Miami has favorable matchups against the Jets. I think they have very good, favorable matchups against the Patriots this upcoming season. Buffalo's interesting because Buffalo is a team that has their own respective share of new. They have a lot of size on the perimeter now. They have said goodbye to Stephon Diggs, brought in Keon Coleman, Mac Hollins, Chase Claypool, Marquez Valdes-Scantling. So they have a lot of competition for the big-bodied outside guys, right? They were a team down the stretch that ran the tar out of the ball. They ran the ball like crazy down the stretch. And what that allowed them to do was to protect the football better. It allowed them to really stress defenses because they had a lot of mass. They did make some changes. They said goodbye to Mitch Morse at center. But where Buffalo is going to be strongest, they're going to take their one-on-one shots outside down the field because Coleman's good catch point type guy. Mac Hollins, the best thing he does as a receiver is win and track vertically down the field. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, vertical type receiver, right? They have guys that can stack you outside the numbers and win down the field. They'll take their 50-50 shots there. But they're going to be a team from a passing game perspective, or at least it projects that way based off of the talent that they have, They're going to live in the middle of the field, and they're going to live in 12 personnel. Because they got Dawson Knox, who they're paying $13 million a season to, and they got Dalton Kincaid, who's a first-round pick in 2023 that was the leading target player after, I think, week 8 down the stretch for Buffalo. And this is where I consider also have Khalil Shakir as the slot receiver, although Curtis Samuel also is a predominant better player when he's inside in the slot. So you have Samuel, Shakir, Kincaid, plus James Cook out of the backfield. I think that's where the volume of Buffalo's passing game is going to go. There's a whole other subplot here about Josh Allen and his success against the Dolphins, and you obviously have to solve that riddle for any of this to matter, right? But I look at the rest of the personnel, and I think it's why it's really important that Miami made some of the personnel shifts and changes that they did, not just from a scheme perspective, but from a talent perspective from last year's team to get guys that are more dynamic. I'm sitting here, I'm watching Rams Seahawks from last year, week 1, and I'm watching Jordan Brooks pick up Tutu Atwell on a deep crosser. And then later in the same game, I'm watching him defend a China route against, it was Tyler Higbee, that whips back inside where you have to stick your foot in the ground and really drive and get back into the hip pocket because there's a sudden change of direction that exists there. And I mean, they really didn't have that kind of player, and they do in Jordan Brooks. So I think his presence is critical. And then having Jalen Ramsey be able to not just say, we're going to stick him on this side of the field, and if you want to put Stephon Diggs over there, he'll cover Stephon Diggs. But if you want to put somebody else, if you want to put Gabe Davis over there and put Stephon Diggs on Cater Kohu, then we'll live in that world too. Like, I think the movability and mobility of your middle field defenders is going to be really essential for the success that you do or don't have against Buffalo offensively. They're going to throw the ball to Kincaid a ton. And whether it's Ramsey, whether it's zone coverage, whether it's Jordan Brooks, whether it's David Long, who hopefully clicks faster into this scheme than he did, it felt like last year. It took him a few weeks to get his feet under him and really get it. And even then, I thought the passing off of stuff over the middle of the field with the strong side linebacker and the nickel corner and that safety to that side of the field, like there was miscommunications there all season long. I think you're better equipped to defend this style of personnel, but whether you actually do or not is a different story. Defensively for Buffalo, kind of the same book as the Jets. They've got really fast linebackers. They go really high rotation up front for their defensive line. They can create pressure with just their 4. And they like to play zone behind it, but they also have some questions at the safety position this year, where they said goodbye to both Porter and Hyde. Their replacements are Mike Edwards, Taylor Rapp, and Cole Bishop. Right? And those are the guys that are kind of going to be tapped. So if you're going to throw the middle of the field, you have to be able to win to some degree up front to force Milano and Bernard to really fly out of there and respect the run. Now, the good news is Miami had success doing that early in the season last year. But how do you build off of that? And can you take some throws over the top if the safeties are going to be really aggressive to cut the first in-breaking route that they see to kind of continue to clog the middle of the field? Or conversely, are you going to catch drop 7 coverage where they're going to play everybody soft? And can you get the ball into the hands of a running back or a tight end like Jonnu Smith to take those opportunities and create yards after catch and force some missed tackles? Right? That's where, for Buffalo, you have to break them down by forcing some missed tackles just because they are so good in zone coverage. And they have a new defensive coordinator, but it's still Sean McDermott defense. They've been elite against the pass every year that McDermott's been there, it feels like, especially the last 4 years. They leverage everything in zone so well that you have to force the breakdowns after you get the ball to get some explosive plays going against them, or you have to take their own coverage rules against them, but that requires a little bit more time. And to have a little bit more time, it goes back to the success running the football. So you look at the Week 18 game and the success in the first half of the season, and you hope they can encapture that because they had success the second game against Buffalo in 2022. Remember, they had all that success early in the game. and then you're up by 8 points or you're up by 5 points, you get the turnover and you're in Buffalo territory, and it's the fourth quarter, final 10 minutes. You can't convert in a short yardage situation. It's 3rd and 3. You end up getting 2 yards and end up kicking a 47-yard field goal to go up 8 points. They go down and score. They get a 2-point conversion. You get the ball up near midfield and have to give it back to them, and they go 93 yards and milk the last 6 minutes of the clock because they could run the football down the stretch in the game, and you couldn't, right? And you, frankly, let them off the hook. So you've seen the flashes of it. McDaniel's got to figure out how to harness it completely. And that's where I do think the safeties, when you think about the game that Miami won in 2022 against Buffalo, Buffalo was down both Hyde and Poyer in that game, and the safeties played a large role. You think of the touchdown pass to River Craycraft that was against a box coverage that beat the safety in the red zone. You think about the explosive play on 3rd and forever to Jalen Waddle. That was the corner post that split the 2 safeties down the middle of the field on an explosive play to set you up for the go-ahead touchdown. So it's there, but you got to facilitate it, and you got to do it for 60 minutes. And that's a personnel and play calling and a comprehensive team effort type thing that I think kind of transcends, do you have the guys to do it or not? You got to get over the mental hill. That's going to do it for us here this week on Locked On Dolphins, unless we get some breaking news before the end of the week, which, fingers crossed, maybe we'll get something exciting. If we do, I'll be here for you. If not, you'll hear from me on Monday. Rookies report to camp next week. The Dolphins veterans the week after, and I, too, will be reporting to camp in 2 weeks to help you guys stay plugged in. Hope you guys plan accordingly. I'm Kyle Krabs. You can keep it locked in right here on Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day. I appreciate you guys checking out the show. Go Dolphins. I'll be back to talk to you all again soon.